We often picture raccoons as creatures of the deep woods, but biological reality tells a different story. They are peridomestic animals, meaning they have evolved to thrive specifically in human architecture, making their homes inside our attics and roofs. We tend to view them as cute, opportunistic scavengers, yet they seamlessly infiltrate the most heavily populated, densely packed environments we build. This extreme physical proximity creates what biologists call a one-health intersection. Our backyards, patios, and playgrounds overlap directly with their habitats, turning our shared spaces into active reservoirs for zoonotic pathogens, diseases that jump from animals to humans. Looking at this diagram, we can isolate the three specific biological vehicles these pathogens use to cross over into humans and pets: saliva, urine, and feces. To safely coexist in these shared environments, we have to stop treating raccoons as a simple wildlife nuisance. We need to understand the biological mechanics of exactly how they leave hazardous pathogens behind. The first route of transmission is saliva. It carries the rabies virus, a neurotropic pathogen, meaning it aggressively targets the nervous system, that is highly endemic in raccoon populations across the eastern United States and parts of Canada. For this virus to spread, it requires a physical breach. An infected raccoon must bite or deeply scratch a victim, injecting the viral load directly into living tissue. This chart illustrates the clinical stakes. There is a narrow incubation window, but the moment neurological symptoms like hydrophobia or muscle spasms appear, the fatality rate spikes to virtually 100%. Intercepting the virus during that narrow incubation window is critical. Immediate post-exposure prophylaxis, or PEP, a specialized series of vaccines, is required to stop the virus before it reaches the brain. Rabies presents an acute and lethal threat. But because it requires direct, violent physical contact to spread, it is also the easiest to avoid. The second route, urine, bypasses the need for a physical attack entirely. It is the primary vector for a spiral-shaped bacterium called Leptospira. This cross-section shows raccoons as maintenance hosts. They harbor bacterial colonies inside their renal tubules, replicating them without suffering illness. As kidneys process fluids, raccoons constantly shed the bacteria, which flows out via urine, pooling invisibly in standing water or mud outside our doors. This creates an indirect mechanism for infection. If a human or an unvaccinated dog simply walks through or touches that contaminated water, the bacteria can enter the bloodstream through microscopic abrasions in the skin or through mucous membranes. Once inside, the infection can escalate into Weil's disease, a severe condition that triggers massive, cascading liver and kidney failure. Unlike a bite, this threat doesn't require the animal to be present. A raccoon can leave a lethal, invisible bacterial hazard in your yard, and days later, the danger remains. The final route is feces, which carries the Baylisascaris procyanus parasite, commonly known as the raccoon roundworm. Raccoons repeatedly use communal defecation sites called latrines. They build these on flat, elevated surfaces like roofs, decks, or the bases of large trees, shedding millions of microscopic roundworm eggs in a single location. This life cycle loop reveals a crucial delay. The eggs are not infectious the moment they leave the raccoon. They require 2 to 4 weeks sitting in the environment to embryonate, developing into an infectious larva. This delay makes latrines uniquely dangerous to young children. Toddlers playing in dirt or uncovered sandboxes frequently put their unwashed hands in their mouths, accidentally ingesting the eggs via the fecal-oral route. Once swallowed, the eggs hatch. The larvae then migrate blindly through the human body, physically boring through tissue and causing severe, irreversible damage to organs, the eyes, and the central nervous system. These eggs possess extreme biological armor. They can easily survive for years in soil and are completely resistant to standard chemical disinfectants, including household bleach. Because of this extreme environmental persistence, raccoon feces represent a long-term biohazard, requiring drastic, specialized intervention to neutralize. We cannot eliminate raccoons from the North American continent, but by understanding their biology, we can systematically break all 3 chains of transmission. The defense against saliva relies on strict behavioral avoidance, never approach or feed wildlife, and maintain up-to-date rabies vaccination protocols for all domestic dogs and cats.
Defeating the urine pathway requires environmental modification.
Eliminate standing water, drain persistent puddles, and secure your yard's drainage to remove the damp breeding grounds where bacteria thrive. Finally, neutralizing the feces threat demands professional remediation. Because roundworm eggs survive bleach, destroying a latrine requires an N95 respirator to prevent inhalation, and extreme heat, like boiling water or a propane torch, to melt the egg's protective armor. By identifying the specific biological mechanisms raccoons use to spread disease, we can establish the rigid boundaries required to safely share our suburban ecosystems.